What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
Hi, Kevin, and hello to your amazing community. I'm so happy to be with you again. I was thinking about it today. It's actually, I believe it was 2018 when we first met. But for those in your community who I don't know yet, my name is Sara Landon, and I'm a channel of the Council, who is a collective of ascended master beings that are here to help us remember who we really are and why we are here and what our purpose is in this life. And so I am currently based close to Santa Barbara, California. I have a beautiful ranch here. Absolutely love it. I'm originally from the Midwest and Montana. So definitely came from an amazing small town, and now find myself in an amazing place near Santa Barbara. So I feel so blessed, and I'm so happy to connect with your community here all over the world.
And I'm blessed to have you back on. Now we will link the previous interview that you did with us for They Call Us Channelers. And like you say, that was, so much has happened since then, right? And so much continues to happen. We live in different times, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And our first meeting was absolute divine orchestration and meant to be, as we talked about previously when we were connecting and catching up. I was not supposed to be doing the interview on the day we were going to do it. I think we were going to do it the day after. And I happened to be in a place that was experiencing some severe weather. And we actually had mudslides that shut down our area on the day that you were supposed to be there. And so perfect divine orchestration. You came a day early. We had an amazing conversation. And I think as you were leaving, they were posting a notice on my gate to evacuate because of mudslides. So meant to be, but at least we have a good story to tell about the time we first met.
Yes. And I thank you for making that happen. Like you say, it was all divine. I would listen back to that if folks, want to hear a bit more about your backstory. We'll get into it here as well. We may do a bit more channeling on this one because obviously we've had that chance to interact before as well. Now, you've got a new book coming out and it's available for pre-order now. So congratulations on being a published author. This is called The Wisdom of the Council, Channeled Messages for Living Your Purposes. Just tell us a very quick synopsis on the book.
Oh, well, the subtitle really says it all. It's channeled messages to help you live your purpose on earth, to live as the master that you truly are of your life experience, and to do so with joy and harmony and peace and love and well-being in abundance in all areas of your life. I'm really excited about this. There is so much love and so much light in this book. It is an amazing collection of just the greatest wisdom from the council. So I hope everybody, if you're watching this prior to November 2022, you can pre-order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Hudson Books, any of those places, and it will be coming out in November 2022. So I'm really excited. Thanks for asking, Kevin.
Yeah, I've had a chance to have a quick read of it as well, just to browse through some pages just to get some questions, I suppose, for this interview as well. And it's a great read. There's some fantastic, really wise and deep information in that book as well. So this is your first book. This is published by Hay House. They, I think you said to me off air as well, they contacted you, which is so cool.
Yeah, for years, people had been saying, you need to write a book. You need to write a book with the council's wisdom. And I honestly do have the dream to be a best-selling author, not from the perspective of any sort of hierarchy, but just to know that these messages are out in the world in a way that is significant and making an impact. So it's always been a dream, but it just didn't feel choiceless. And the council talks a lot about following energy and letting light guide the way. And then it started to come together. And I was introduced to Hay House by a dear friend, Mike Dooley, who probably many of you know. And Hay House actually said, "Hey, do you have a book?" And we sent over the manuscript and they loved it. And we had a book deal within a couple of days. And then they actually we submitted a proposal for a second book called The Dream, the Journey, Eternity, and God, which is a collaboration of Mike Dooley, who's a best-selling author and very notable personal development and spiritual teacher. And so that is a book where Mike Dooley is asking questions to the council about the dream, our journey here, eternity, and the meaning and the relationship with God. So it's amazing. I'm really excited. And then more to come.
I love that where someone else is just as enthralled by the information that you're able to bring through, and they're able to sort of ask those sort of golden nuggets of questions as well. That sounds really exciting. And I'm sure there were some questions that were asked that really opened your mind up as well, even though you do this work full time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's always so interesting. I truly believe that the wisdom that the council brings through is in elevating our awareness and our perspective. So as people's questions evolve and become more about how do we live our highest potential, what is our greater calling, what's really possible for us, what the meaning of all of this is, when we get into some of those questions, oh my gosh, their perspective and the awareness that they bring you into is just absolutely amazing.
Absolutely, and we'll get into that and so much more as well. So in the book, you go into your story, as we've all got one, and yours begins with Aunt Sunny and her sort of spiritual path. Obviously, you were brought up Christian. Let's just emphasize it with that as well. And this was all part of your journey, but your auntie's journey actually inspired you in what you're doing now. I suppose it's all part of the path that you took.
Yeah, she absolutely has just made a tremendous impact on my life and my parents as well. I have to say, my parents really live all of this and have done so very innately. They may not use the same language as we might use, but they really do live it. I was born into a beautiful, wonderful, loving Christian family in a small town rural area. I really feel like I had such a blessed and wonderful childhood. And in 1987, we ended up moving closer to my Aunt Sunny, who at the time was on a spiritual path and had been for a while. And I remember, well, first off, I just always thought that she was just so incredible from a very young age. And she was on a spiritual path at that point, studying quantum physics and reincarnation and metaphysical everything. And I would just sit as a young person and just listen to this incredible wisdom. She was also studying with a woman who channeled a being called Mafu. And I would listen to these recordings, and I just felt the vibration and the resonance in them. I truly do believe we all have a very blessed and guided path. And I think that was part of the path for me. But at the time, it was a result of my parents ending their marriage and my mom moving closer to her family. So at the time, it seemed like, wow, this is terrible. My whole life is changing. And yet I look back at it, this and many things in my life, and I go, wow, every step of the way, everything really was happening for me. And I think it's important to emphasize this because we are living in a really amazing and beautiful time where this is quite normal. It's quite approachable and consumable for people to be into spirituality and channeling and understanding what's out there and what is our role in all of this. You know, we've taken these conversations out of the closet, as evident by your amazing show. But I think about all of the brave people on this spiritual path 20, 10, 30, 40, 50, 100 years ago, where this wasn't as mainstream as it is now. And I think they have really passed the baton for us to step into a much more approachable way of sharing these higher teachings. So I have so much appreciation to my Aunt Sunny and all of those who have come before us to really pave the way for us to get to do the things we love, like your show and like the work I get to do with the council, Kevin.
Yeah, there's more and more people coming into their sort of spiritual journey nowadays. I mean, I've interviewed now over 100 channelers, and it can keep us. You know, there's so many channelers out there. There really is, and I guess I never started on this journey to interview so many. And this is not all that I'm going to do. This is just one particular docu-series, right? But it's so interesting, you know, hearing different perspectives, where the individual's at that brings the information through, the connection that they've got. I mean, there's a lot of the same messages as well, and we'll get into that as well. But it's just sort of sticking with your story, and I'm appreciate you inspiring others as well to take that challenge and you know, to look at the spiritual side and to awaken to their greatest version. With yourself, you went into the corporate world, and you had, I guess, what you would call a normal sort of life. But reading the book, obviously in November of 2001, if you want to take us to what happened in 2001, there was a big shift in your life from that moment onwards, I believe.
Yeah, I had gotten really into personal development, probably as a result of being aware that anything is possible for us, that we can change our life and our circumstances and our conditions. And I got very into personal development, got into the corporate world very young, was really passionate about it, and wanted to create a successful life and a normal life, whatever that is, right, Kevin? And I had the corporate job in the big high rise downtown, and I thought I was doing everything I was supposed to do, quote unquote, bought the house, got married. And yes, in 2001, I had an experience again that at the time seemed like the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. And I look back now, it gives me chills to even talk about it, but I look back now and how divinely orchestrated everything is. So in November of 2001, I got a phone call from my mom that my older brother had been killed instantly in a car accident in Alaska. And so I immediately got on a plane, flew up to be with my family. We, as a family, went into his viewing. And I had never seen a dead body before. And I walked up to my brother and touched his body. It was very cold. The room was heavy. It was very emotional. I went and sat down on a chair near my family. We were all just kind of taking it in. And I sat there for a couple of minutes. I really don't know how long I sat there, but before too long, all of a sudden, I started to feel this sensation that I can only describe as liquid love, which started going through the top of my head, down over my shoulders, down all the way through my body. And I was completely and totally in peace. I was just completely peaceful. I felt surrounded by love. I felt this warmth all around me. And my brother's body was on the left side of the room. And I heard over my right shoulder him say to me, "I'm still here. I'm just not in there." And in my head, I said back to him, "Where are you?" And he said, "I'm just as here as I ever was. I just left the density of the body, and I'm at a frequency or a vibration that your physical senses can't interpret. But nobody ever goes anywhere. We're just at a frequency when we leave the body that you can't interpret with your sense of sight and sense of hearing." And this knowing, it was just a knowing that this was him and that it was real. From the feeling of love, it was just absolutely undeniable. It then receded, and I was back in this cold, emotional, heavy room. Looked around. Clearly, no one in my family had heard the same thing I had heard. But I can tell you from that moment, I have never experienced grief or loss in any way where I don't know for sure that whoever it is, as much as our humans may really miss your beloved friend or family member or animal that transitions, that knowing that they're always here. And I think that love for my brother allowed me to continue to stay open to this connection and actually desire to have this connection and communication with him, regardless of what my logical mind said about it. I wanted to feel that feeling again. I wanted to talk to him again. I didn't know at the time how to consciously, intentionally make that connection. And so for many years, he would come spontaneously, and that liquid love would come through and he would communicate. And then I started waking up in the middle of the night, probably in the height of my corporate career, traveling the world, working numerous hours a day, 7 days a week. I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would just start writing. And I had to write. This energy just came through, and I would write, and then it would stop and I would go back to sleep. And in the morning, I would read it. And it was the most profound information that wasn't coming from me. It was coming through me, but it really answered all of my questions. I had studied Christianity and Hinduism and Buddhism and all sorts of philosophy and personal development and all sorts of different transformational teachers and leaders, but I still had a lot of questions that I felt were unanswered. And much to my surprise, the information started actually coming through me. So this went on for a couple of years. It was very spontaneous. I, at that time, again, didn't know how to consciously, intentionally initiate what I would refer to as automatic writing, which is what I believe that experience was. And a few years after that, I was introduced or met this woman who was a QHHT practitioner, the teachings of Dolores Cannon. And she said, "Oh, I help people get in touch with their higher selves." And I said, I think I need to talk to you. And so we did this QHHT session, and much to my surprise, all of a sudden this energy came through, like nothing I had experienced, a love like nothing I had experienced on earth, a presence like nothing I had experienced. And all of a sudden, the council came through and started answering all of her questions about anything she had. And this went on for about an hour, and then they receded. And at the time, I just referred to it as the voice because my voice changed significantly and the cadence of my speech changed significantly. But the wisdom that came through, the energy that came through, began to change my life and began to change her life. And over time, as I began to share this wisdom and the wisdom of the council with people, initially with private sessions, and now I have a master's class community and we do lots of courses and workshops and live events and all sorts of things. But at first it was private sessions, and I was literally seeing awakening, ascension, transformation, people coming into realization and changing their entire life. And it was the scariest thing on earth that I could possibly imagine, to step out in the world and say, "Oh, I channel this group of non-physical beings called the council. And oh yeah, by the way, when you hear it, it sounds very different than my voice. And oh yeah, if you watch me do it, my eyes are closed. And yeah, it is a little strange." But I had to step through my greatest fear because I just knew this wisdom would contribute to transforming so many people. And I had to share it. So.
And it continues too. When you say your greatest fear, what was your greatest fear at the time then? Was it just becoming public about what you were doing, or?
Yeah, I really didn't want to lose the love and approval of my family and many of my Christian friends. I just didn't think people would understand. I also had spent many years creating this personality known as Sara.
Heavily invested.
That my human was really heavily invested in, which was, I'm a corporate executive. I've created this successful life and it's really normal. People were proud of me. I thought I had done all the right things, but inside I just knew I wasn't living my truth. And I certainly never thought my truth was going to be channeling. And yet now I see how it was all perfect. And I'm grateful for all of it. I really did love being in the corporate world. I love my clients. I love the people I worked with. It was an amazing opportunity. And I think all of it contributed to being able to bring this wisdom to the world in a global nature. So I'm grateful for it all.
Well, and thank you for what you did as well, because you've been a way shower for others. But when you went past the fear, what happened to the friends, the religious friends?
Well, probably my biggest fear of all was at the time, my fear that I might lose my relationship with my dad. My dad and I are really close. He's an amazing man and I just love him dearly. And I didn't think he'd understand. And at first he didn't understand. He once said, "Sara, why don't you just use your normal voice and just call it you?" I was like, "Dad, if you think that I could talk for 2 hours in some strange voice and not miss a beat and not say and not have a pause, like, hey, if I was making this up, I'd make it look a lot better than it does."
Can I ask you why you're saying that? Because all I'm thinking, no, exactly, right. But we think, don't we? And it's true to some respects. Our parents know us best in some ways. Well, they knew us at a stage of our life, didn't they? I guess maybe at the stage that you was at, maybe they didn't quite know. But did it ever make you think, well, maybe Dad does know best? And is it my higher self coming through? I mean, was there these sort of questions going on?
Well, I think it was very surprising to both of my parents, but especially my dad. Why would I leave this really high-paying corporate career that I had worked so hard to build? And why would I walk away from that and pursue this path? But I think he would say, even from a young age, he was the first person to give me books on personal development and things like How to Win Friends and Influence People and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And so I wanted to be an inspirational person in other people's lives from a very young age. And I think he did know that. But it's interesting. I also said to my dad, he said, I just don't understand. And I said, that's okay. That's okay. I said, you didn't understand what I did when I did IT infrastructure consulting either. And so it's okay. You're still my dad. And our relationship has always been harmonious, but I'll tell you, now the appreciation and the love between us, really, I believe, because I'm living my truth and I'm not begging anyone else to approve of me or accept it. I'm approving and accepting of myself. And again, this is the teaching of the council. When you accept and love yourself, that's what will be reflected back to you. When you approve of yourself, that you are more than enough exactly as you are, other people will reflect that back to you. Now, I will share this because I think it's important. There is one person in my family who I never, ever expected would speak to me in a way that he was disapproving of this. It's actually my very dear uncle, who's been special to me and like a father to me my whole life. I just sort of assumed he would understand, or it wouldn't be a big issue for him. But some years into my channeling, when I was really doing a lot of stuff online and doing a lot of courses, when I first kind of started to be much more public with it, he actually said, I'm not into this, man. I don't get it. And I can't be friends with someone I don't agree with. And I was shocked, but I took some deep breaths. I practiced all the things the council teaches. And I instantly heard, this isn't about you. And the guidance and my higher self and the council just continued to say, just love him. Just love him. Keep loving him. Don't entangle with this. Do not create a story around this. Just love him. And I did. And it was about a year or two later that he actually sent me a text, and he said, hey kid, I just got to tell you, I was wrong. I couldn't be more proud of you. I love you. And we've just been right back to being great buddies ever since then. So if anybody is facing something like this, first off, do not deny love for yourself, because it's not about you. It's about where they are on their path. And if you will just continue to love yourself and show up and be loving, allow them maybe the time and the space they need to come to a place where they do understand, and maybe they never do. And that's okay.
It has to be. Yes.
It has to be. It has to be.
And the reason I want you to share this like you are, because really this is kind of what some of the context which is in this new book. And to hear your personal journey with the context which is in the book as well, just is helpful for people as well. Do you know what I mean? To have some humanity, well, some humanism to it. That's a word I'll make up right now. But it just it allows people to connect more to the story, I think. I kind of just want to go back to some things you said, if that's okay. When you talked about the QHHT, and I've been promoting QHHT because I think it's really powerful, and I know what it can do for people, right? But were those sessions recorded? Do you still have any of those recorded sessions? Did you keep anything?
They were recorded, and I listened back to them many times. I'm sure I have them somewhere. They were recorded on a phone, just in voice memos of my phone. So I'm sure somewhere, if I dug around for all those own phones, I do have some very early recordings where my voice is extremely different than it is now. So over the past 10 years, at most times in my life, or for a significant amount of that time, I was channeling like 6 hours a day, doing private sessions with people all over the world. I don't do private sessions anymore, but at the time I was channeling every day for hours. And I believe that that helped me to integrate the vibration and the frequency so that it was more resonant with my own body and my own voice. So it's not as different now, but yeah, I do have some early recordings and even some early videos that yeah. I don't know if I actually have the first one. That's a good question. I'm sure I do somewhere. I'll have to find it, but it evolves over time for sure.
Of course it does, and I want people to know that as well. That's how it works. You didn't just sort of start channeling and then just run straight into this. There was a process here for you as well. And I guess leaving the corporate side must have been I wanted to use the word difficult kind of decision, but in the end, it just felt so right to do there. I'm guess there was some sort of fear around that, and there is for people who want to make this their full-time work as well.
That's actually a funny story. So I had set in my mind this intention that I was going to leave the corporate world by a certain date. And then I just continued to stay open. And an opportunity actually presented itself with some partners to buy a personal development company. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is it. So I left the corporate world, and this is what I was going to do, this personal development company. And I moved to a different town, a different state by myself. I left a long-term relationship, and I just knew I had to do this. Well, I get there, and about 3 months into it, the opportunity fell apart. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've just ruined my entire life. That was when I had the QHHT session. And at any moment, I could have just gone back to the corporate world. I did move back to the place that I lived about a year later, and I could have gone back into the corporate world at any point in time, but my logical mind really wanted to do that. And my human was really scared and really wanted to just go back to what felt safe and comfortable. Yet every time I took a step in that direction, I just felt like I was going to cry. I just felt like I can't do this. My body would shut down. There was no joy. And that doesn't mean I didn't love the people I worked with, because there was a lot of joy in my relationships with them. And I knew what I did was made a positive impact on businesses and companies. And so it wasn't that, it's just, I couldn't do it, Kevin. I just couldn't do it. And I was living on my savings. It was during the time when the stock market crashed and the real estate market crashed. And I had several properties that I thought would double and triple in a few years, right? Well, now I have all these properties. The rental market crashed. I was paying, all these mortgages and these properties I couldn't sell, going through my savings. And yet again, one of the things that seemed like the worst time of my life, all I had was these teachings and this wisdom. And the council said, if you will just live this wisdom, you will live a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I had some pretty big dreams for my life, but that's all I had. I just had these teachings, and I had to apply them in my life to change my life. And I absolutely do live a life beyond my wildest dreams, getting to do this work and the amazing experiences. So I see a lot of people go through this. I have taken over 4,000 people through the process of learning how to channel, but I will preference that with everybody is a channel. And especially if you are drawn to channeled information, you are a channel. It's about opening and reconnecting to that. Just like any relationship, your relationship to source, your higher self, your guides is just like any other relationship. If you spend time with it, if you trust it, and that's the biggest thing, if you are devoted to it and really want that relationship, it's always been there for you. It never went anywhere. You just chose to focus more on this human experience than that relationship with source or your higher self or guides that has always been with you all along, and anyone can do it. Now, the difference is when I first started channeling, Kevin, it took me like 15 minutes of my friend, this woman who became a dear friend, who was a QHHT practitioner, of her walking me through a guided meditation. I had to lay down on a bed with my eyes covered, and then the counsel would come in. So when I first started channeling, it took like 15 minutes for me to get into channel, and I had to lay flat on a bed. Well, I could maybe hold it for like an hour, and my body was trying to integrate it. Now, because it's kind of like that 10,000 hours concept in the book Outliers, now I just take 3 deep breaths. They're right there. I can channel for a couple hours. I can channel 6 hours a day with some breaks in between. And when they recede, I come right back through, and it's actually very energizing for me. It's nothing ever that I feel tired or any of that. But again, and you mentioned it earlier, it's about applying this wisdom and really living it. And as you kind of said, humanizing these higher teachings and this higher awareness and guidance. To me, I had heard a channel say one time that, I'll go get the channel because I've got nothing to say. Or I heard another channel that said, the wisdom's really great, but I don't really live it. And those two things for me, I had such a reaction to those two things that I knew there was something in it for me. And ultimately it was like, no, I want to be the ultimate student of these teachings. I want to live it. I want to apply it in my life. And I truly believe we can live in joy and peace and harmony and well-being every moment of every day if we're choosing. And I also felt like I had something to contribute. And so, like, for example, in my master's class program, we do live channel calls and Q&A every month, but I also do live calls where I share how we live this and talk about how we take this higher wisdom and higher guidance and implement it in our life every day, because that's really important.
Absolutely. Your website, Sara, is?
SaraLandon.com.
Okay. And what are some of the new courses that you're doing? Yeah, no, it's great. What are some of the courses?
Yeah. Well, we've done a lot of courses, and each one is its own vibrational frequency. Sometimes people take them live. Sometimes people catch the replays, a year after they've been created or several years. And just, that's exactly what they were drawing to them in their experience. We've done the journey of the master. We've done Welcome to Paradise. We've done Merging Heaven on Earth. We've done the Art of Channeling. We've done all sorts of courses. I have a lot of favorites. I love them all. It's just amazing. And we, this last year, invested in creating some amazing meditations that are set to custom music that was created to go along with the channel wisdom of the council. And that's been amazing. We recently are doing a channeled event on freedom and the freedom to create a life you love. There's just, I recommend to people just see what lights up for you. If you're called to something particular, a course, that's probably exactly what will light up for you, and you'll hear exactly what you want to hear from that. But I think the thing I am most proud of that we have created, and it's funny because it was about 5 years ago that I felt guided to create this master's class program and global community of really way showers and leaders and people out there that are in their families and communities and their lives and their businesses. They are creating a pathway forward and being way showers of this wisdom in their everyday life. And so my advanced master's class community, we have a live call every Wednesday with Q&A, channeled information. It has grown to include community calls. So people are getting together every week all over the world. I just can't even, the things that we have done, business strategy coaching sessions inside of our master's class communities to help other people who are bringing their gifts and their abilities to the world. But my master's class advanced program is probably one of the things that I'm just most proud of. It was a it was a dream. I never knew how it would ever be possible. And I look back and go, oh wait, that wasn't my idea at all. Like the council had some much greater knowing of what was possible with it all. So yeah, but you can find a lot of free resources as well. We dedicate an entire section of our website to free channeled messages, and we add 2 new free channel messages every single month. So you'll find a lot of free resources there as well.
What is then, do you think, the difference with someone wanting to get a reading, maybe, and then to maybe, if they were to do a course rather than have a reading? I'm guessing it's longer term connection with you, right? But you actually, their self-improvement, because that's what all your work is about. Even when you mentioned your parents as well, they're both into the self-improvement side. You were always into that side. And I think I said this to you on the previous interview, that I felt that your work was very much about becoming your best version of yourself with this type of information. I think that's what any good channeler does in a sense, but I know that you do it really well, right? Yeah, because some people are just so drawn to get a reading, but I'm like, with yourself, it's so much bigger than that, isn't it?
Yeah. And thank you for saying that, because really it is. It is about being the very best version of you. It's about you creating yourself as who you want to be in the world and what experiences you want to have. And a lot of that is moving through this experience of really knowing your own worth, and that you are already, as the council said, everything you wish to be, you already are. So it's just really about expressing yourself fully and being your authentic self and being all that you are. And what is living fully and what does loving fully mean to you? And what do you want to create? It's all about that. So living your highest potential, living your purpose, being the greatest version of you, living your best life. And so the difference between the council and I would say some other channels that are out there is that that's their focus. And they always bring it back to this grander perspective of your highest potential here in your life. And so in private sessions, so first off, anytime you listen to the council, whether it's a private session or a course or master's class call or meditation, they say it's always about the vibrational experience. It's about the vibration of remembering the truth of you. It's not about their vibration so much as that they hold the vibration and frequency for you to reconnect with your own highest vibration and frequency and remember the truth of you. When people have a private session, oftentimes they're looking for answers to these problems that they're having, right? But the council continues to bring it back to the vibrational experience and this grander vision of what someone's highest potential is and how they live it. And while the continual feedback is, oh my gosh, that was like a feeling of coming home. That was so amazing. It's an integration. So what I realized was people would have an amazing session, but the support that they needed to actually integrate it really came by being part of this master's class community. And that's why I believe I was inspired to create it, because not only do you have the integration and the channeled messages every single week, but you also have an incredible community that's talking about how they're living it and sharing it. And that adds to potentials and possibilities. And so with a course, they may be 5 or 6 sessions. Each one is going to take you deeper and deeper and deeper. And what most people say is, oh gosh, I couldn't stop listening to it. I just listened to the whole course and now I'm going to listen to it again. And each time you do, you get more and more and more out of it. I laugh sometimes because I'll go back to channeled messages from 10 years ago from the council. And I had them all transcribed and I would go back and read them. And I'll go back now sometimes and go, oh my gosh, I don't even remember them talking about this 10 years ago. And yet it's every time you come into a new place of awareness, you're going to hear more and more every time. So I think you could take one course or one channel transmission and you could take a lifetime to apply that and study it. But I do think every time we're in their presence, at least for me, it's just takes me deeper and deeper into this, what they call realization, which is the integration of every part of you, and to ultimately know that you are creator within your own creation, this life that you're living.
Yes, what you talk about in the book now, as you're explaining what you're explaining, I see now that actually these are elements that you can go deeper within the courses for as well. And there's that live community side to it as well. And some of them are pre-recorded, are they?
So when people join the master's class program, they actually get several hours. There's a total of 200 hours that they receive over time of being part of the master's class, where they receive pre-recorded calls from prior years, prior times, as well as several courses and meditations. Some of my favorites, 7 Steps to Self-Love and How to Speak Your Truth. So those are all part of the library that they receive when they join the master's class program. And the longer they're part of it, we add more things every time. So yeah, it's a combination of pre-recorded material that's available to you and live sessions, which each live session also has a replay and a transcript of the channeled messages that are part of it.
Fantastic. Thank you just for explaining that. Yeah, excellent. So I just want to go back here a bit, right? Because I just feel there's something I've missed in this story, maybe a little bit, just for my own personal kind of like curiosity, I suppose. I feel that when your brother passed, and that terrible, tragic day when he did, right? You've obviously communicated with your brother a number of times since then, right? Do you now feel, looking back all those years, and I'm guessing sometimes it just feels like it was yesterday. We can go back to that memory, right? But when you can go back and now looking at it from a completely different sort of lens, that this was meant to be. Can that his passing was actually part of your shattering, in a sense, to become what you're doing now?
So, gosh, thank you for asking this question. I haven't thought about this in quite a while, and it just gave me chills to remember it. But one of the messages that my brother shared with me is that he had chosen to come into our family to teach us how to love unconditionally, to teach unconditional love and to bring unconditional love to our family and those people that he came in contact with. He was, an exceptional person always. He had these big, beautiful blue eyes and this bright light about him always. And some years after that, my cousin Chad, Aunt Sunny's son, Aunt Sunny had one son, also transitioned very young at the age of 39 years old in an airplane crash where he died instantly. And the night before he died, it was 3 months before his 40th birthday. The night before he died, he on his computer saved the final version of a video of pictures of his entire life set to music that he had been working on. And the night before he died, he saved the final version of that, marked final version. And at the very end of this video he had made of his life, it said, "Get busy living or get busy dying." And I know that not only was that a gift to all of us, but it was his reflection on this journey. And he really, both my brother and my cousin Chad, were absolute masters. They lived it to the fullest. And we might think, gosh, they should have lived to be 80 or 90 or 100. But they came to experience what they wanted to experience. And when their soul had completed what they came here for, they release the density of the body and they continue this journey on in higher levels of consciousness. And I truly do believe that while their human might say, "I don't want to die," which is understandable, and all of us who love them would far prefer them here in physical form to hug and talk to. And of course, your human misses someone when they transition. But in both of these experiences, I know that their soul was ready and that they were still with me. In fact, my cousin Chad was a falconer. And in the exact time that he died, I was sitting on a beach with a friend in Malibu, California. And this person had, in front of us were these birds that were flying right in front of us and then dive bombing into the water. So they would fly and they would just nosedive into the water. And my friend said, "What are those? Are those like falcons?" And I'm like, "No, those aren't falcons." My cousin Chad was a falconer. So I sat there and told my friend all about my cousin Chad as these birds right in front of us. For as far as you could see, there was none to the right or the left of us. They just kept flying right in front of us and dive bombing straight into the water. We got done at the beach, went home. I wasn't home for probably a half an hour. And my mother called me again with that awful tone. And I thought something had happened to my stepfather. And she said, Chad was just killed in an airplane crash. He was flying and his plane, the nose just dive bombed and went straight into the ground. In the moment these birds were flying in front of me, diving face first into the ground, into the ocean, in those exact minutes, Chad was in a plane crash and his plane went straight into the ground in the moment I was talking about him. And so I now that I know how to consciously, intentionally tune into our loved ones on the other side, he's just as here with me as my brother all the time. And they both have a very different energy. I can feel them. And yet they each have a unique soul signature, vibrational signature. And I share all of this for a couple of things. I know a lot of people have had very similar situations. And your logical mind might want to try to talk you out of it. Oh, that was just a coincidence that you were talking about him at the same time. It was a coincidence, a harmonious, divinely orchestrated, perfect incidence of how connected we all are. So if you have had these experiences, I encourage you to not try to deny them for yourself or let the logical mind take over. These are the spiritual, supernatural experiences that are what our life is all about. And anyone can connect with their loved ones on the other side in any moment. And once you know that, you don't experience grief again. I have a very dear friend that transitioned in January of this year, and I was with him and his wife and his daughters on the day that he was transitioning. And the next morning, she had shared that he had transitioned in the night. And I let my human cry. I let my human feel that loss of her friend. I let my human feel what it felt like to be on this earth without John here. And I let myself feel all of that. And then I walked into my office. I sat down on my desk. I got out my journal and I said, "John, what do you want me to know?" And I just started writing, and I wrote about 4 or 5 pages. I read it to myself out loud after. It's everything I know he would have said. And I know it was from him. And I haven't felt grief since that moment. And this is possible for everyone. It's a lot of what I teach in the art of channeling or in my semi-private channeling group. Once you know how to connect to the higher self of anyone, whether they're living or transitioned, your life is forever changed. I do this a lot with my partner. If I find myself upset with him about something, the very best practice is to take some deep breaths and go sit down with a journal and ask for a message from their higher self. They will always give you a message. And I think about one particular time early in our relationship where I was really hurt by something, and I asked his higher self for a message. And as I wrote it, I started feeling better. But as I read it out loud to myself afterwards, I was like, oh, I get it. And I just softened. I just went straight to love. And a few weeks after that, I actually told him, that night I channeled a message from your soul about it. I said, "Do you want to hear it?" And he said, "Yeah." And so I read it to him, and he, had tears coming down his face, and he said, "That's exactly what I wanted to say, but that's a whole lot better than the way I wanted. I would have said it." So when this, whether it's a child, if you're having an issue with a child or with a parent or a coworker, their higher self is always available to you.
That's so much easier than getting your things trucked out, isn't it?
Yeah.
No,
It's
should have tried that last time.
Yeah.
Or twice or three times.
Yeah.
then finally leaving. Then going through immigration. And then going through bankruptcy. I should have just done that, man.
I love you, Kevin. As we talked about, you're gonna look back at this and go, "Oh God, I'm doing that how that was happening for me."
No, that's great. Do you know what? Right, I never thought of. Yeah, of course you can speak to the higher self, but there's always that part of me, and maybe people watching this as well, right? That will think, well, okay, it sounds great what's coming through, and yes, I know if I apply that, probably what's coming through, that will be for my best benefit. But how can I trust it? How do I know that really is coming through? And if I can't trust it, no, it's just something else. Do you know what I mean? There's that part of trust, isn't there, with this?
So when I teach people how to channel, either semi-private or in the Art of Channeling course that we've done, the number one thing I always say is trust. I was recently asked to provide my number one tip for learning how to channel. And I was like, that's an absolute no-brainer. I know exactly what that is. Trust. Most people think they're making it up. Most people think that it's not going to be there if they tune in. Most people doubt it. And I'll actually tell you the experience that just made this, took this to a whole nother level for me. So I was never, ever thought that I would be teaching people how to channel. That I never thought that. And all of a sudden I just got this inspiration and this knowing I've got to teach people how to do this and connect to their own source or guides or higher self. And so I first started doing it one-on-one with people. And I did that for a couple of years. And then it became very clear that I had to start doing it in groups, and I had to start doing, courses on it. And, to date, we've taken over 4,000 people around the world through this experience, and everybody can do this. It's unique for everyone. Some people verbally channel like I do. Some people do automatic writing. Some people connect to angels. Some people connect to a particular guide. Some people are doing light language or mediumship. Some people bring it through an art. One woman who was never an artist and all of a sudden started doing channeled art. I mean, there's a whole lot of ways that we express source energy as we channel those vibrations and frequencies. It's not all the same for everyone. But early on, I was taking this woman through the series. And one of the things I have people do is this automatic writing process where they tune in each day and ask, what does my soul want me to know? And she emails me and says, in preparation for our next session, she goes, by the way, I don't think this automatic writing thing is working. I don't think it's my higher self. And I said, well, type it up and send it to me, or send me what you're writing. And she had typed it up on her computer and sent it to me. And I was like, oh, I get it. And so when we got on the phone for the next session, I said, let me read this to you. And it started off, we love you. We're here for you. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Everything is working out for you. You're so divine. You're so perfect and worthy. You're here to be abundant and joyful and happy. And as I'm reading this, she's crying. I'm crying. She's like, wow, that's amazing. And that's when I realized how important it is to read your messages out loud when you're doing automatic writing, or have someone read the messages back to you. Because when you're hearing it in your head and you're reading it back to yourself in your head, you don't get it. You don't get how powerful these words are. But here's the important part. If it was her making it up, or if it was coming from her head, which is what she thought, and this was the question I asked her, if this was coming from your head, is this what your head is saying to you? And she's like, no, my head's like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I haven't got it done yet. I need to figure it out. I need to get busy. I need to work harder. I shouldn't have done this. I should have done more of that. Why am I not there yet? That's what the voice in our head says. And so for most people, channeling is so right there and it's so subtle. It is love. It is endless appreciation and acceptance of you. It is a deep reverence for you. And it's not always this big booming voice of God. It's that tuning in to something beyond just your physical senses that has this absolutely unwavering, unconditional love for you. And if the messages you're getting are the same every day, it's because you're not really getting it.
You didn't listen in the first place. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're saying slow down and come into the moment, and yet what you're going, oh my God, what should I be doing? I got to work harder. I got to do more. I've got to figure this out. I've got to start my business. I've got to do all this stuff. And they're saying slow down, because stillness is the access point to acceleration. Slow down, your power's in the moment, let it come to you, right? If they keep saying the same message to you, it's because that's the awareness that is the highest guidance for you in that moment. As you integrate that, the messages will evolve and expand. The other thing, just really quick, is if someone was not asking questions of the council, if I just would have done the automatic writing, I don't believe that the wisdom of the council would be where it is. I don't believe that my ability to channel would be where it is if someone wasn't asking questions. Because every time I tune into the council, I know I'm in channel because all is well.
And the discernment for that, I suppose, is the message always comes from love. It's always of kindness. It's not trying to deceive anyone. Do you know what I mean? Control any situations. You would understand that energy. That's not from love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when you're in a higher state of awareness and people are asking questions, and what's coming through you is not what your human would say. So many times people will come and want the counsel to a recent question in our master's class community on one of the live calls of, someone they're in a relationship with. And the council will just never judge or condemn anyone. They are in the truth and the perfection of everyone. Now, it's understood from their level of consciousness that as we are in lower vibrations and frequencies, and as in our human experience, someone is in a lower level of consciousness, that's where pain and suffering and struggle come from, in that level of consciousness. But that's not the truth of who they are. And the council always stays in that higher awareness of the truth of who you are and who everyone else is too.
Well, they've just not really remembered the potential of what they could be. And I always say to people, look, even if you don't believe in it, right, and that's fine as well, of course it is, right? And if there is nothing beyond this, and if this is coming from some part of the brain, right, just think of the information, though. Think of it, just hear what's got to be said. And it really is, most of this information is empowering you in ways that maybe break you free of patterns that you couldn't have got free of any other way. And if it's helping you to become your best version, if this is one way to help you become your best version, regardless what there is when we continue or what this really is, isn't there some magic and beauty in that?
Well, this happens all the time, where someone in my community will channel a message, and the very next day the council will do a live channel call, and the message is almost exactly the same. It's a field of consciousness, and there is the brain, and then there is this field of consciousness. And so most all of our inspirations and guidance and thoughts, when of a higher nature, is coming from that higher level of consciousness. And that higher level of consciousness is all one and all connected, and all of us can tap into that and tune into that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, thank you for sharing the stories of your loved ones as well, including your brothers as well. and their memory still lives on, even in this conversation, which is nice, right? And it just goes to show as well that no matter how much of this work you do, we're still here. We're still here to have a human experience. This work that you do is not the elimination of that or to the avoidance of that. It's to become that even best version of your human self, right? So
I live a very normal life.
Right.
I have many friends that think I'm a motivational speaker or
Yes.
inspirational
You
speaker.
are, right?
They have no concept of channeling, nor is it something that they want to talk about. I just live a very normal life. And I think that's what the council is here to say to us as well. You can live in a very modern world and live a very wonderful life integrating all of this. It's not about being a monk on a mountaintop in isolation. If that's what you want to experience, that's perfectly fine. But it really is about living a very beautiful, wonderful, seemingly normal life connected into this higher awareness and grander part of you.
Well, thank you for that. And just before we're doing any channeling, I just want to say you've mentioned this message before, and this is the wisdom of the council as well. If you just live this wisdom, you will live a life beyond your dreams. Now, some people may say, well, what is that wisdom in its shortest sort of nugget? And you do mention as well in previous sort of talks we've had that the council say that the instant manifestation of allowing is joy. Now, I'm maybe mixing two things together there, but yeah.
A lot of people hear this word allowing, and they're like, I don't get it. I thought I was allowing, or I don't know how to allow, or what does that even mean? And I have to say, someone in our masterclass community actually said, the word allowing doesn't really resonate with me. And they said, I was given the word welcoming. Receiving might be another way to say it. So welcoming in guidance, welcoming in peace, welcoming in joy. So the council says, yes, the instant manifestation of allowing is joy. And if you will just ask yourself, what brings me joy, and begin to focus on the things that bring you joy, and you go do the things that bring you joy, and you're conscious and present in those times of being in joy, you are in a state of allowing, or you are in a state of receiving, or you are in a state of welcoming in your highest good. It's all the same.
And then going back to, if you just live the wisdom of the council in a sense, but maybe someone's just watching this video and are going to do no more than watch it and enjoy the energy of what we're talking about, right? But what is one nugget of wisdom that would allow them to sort of live by some of what the council teach as well? So if what is the wisdom in a sense?
Yeah. So I will say the council's continual message is, you are us, we are you, you are the council here on earth, which means this is not about their truth. It's about you connecting to your truth. And that continues to expand and go deeper all the time. You are free to create the life you want to live. You are free to do what you love and do the things that bring you joy and spend time with the people that you love and enjoy. You're free to do that. And that's why you're here, is to create the life that you love. And you may not know how you're going to get from where you are to living a life beyond your wildest dreams. That part is not your job. Your job is, as creator within your own creation, to focus on what you love, what brings you joy. The council says we get more of what we are, not so much what we think we need or what we think we want. Because when we're holding ourselves in I want more money because I'm in lack, you are actually emanating a frequency of lack, and you are a force field of consciousness made up of particles of infinite creation that are always responding to you. So when the signal you're sending out is, I don't have what I want, I don't have enough money, I don't have the resources, that's what those particles are responding to. So quite simply, you get more of what you are, period. And so as you are noticing all the abundance in your life, as you are noticing all of the parts of your body that are working at the highest state of well-being, as you notice all the love you have, as you notice that you are free every day, you choose what you do with your day. You are far more free to make choices of how you want to experience your life than you realize. And it's just as simple as noticing who chooses what you eat. You do. Who chose what you wore today or how you fixed your hair? Who chose whether you responded to that text and what you said? Who chose what movie you watched? Who chose the way you drove to the store? You are free to make these choices all day. And when you start to really notice how free you are, you draw more and more and more freedom into your experience. And so ultimately, I believe that everything comes down to one thing. And it is about knowing your own worthiness, that you are whole and complete and perfect just as you are right now. There is nothing that you can ever do or have ever done in this human experience that can threaten your worthiness or your wholeness. We spend a lot of time in our life looking at what's not right about us or what we still think we need to change and fix, which is how we deny our wholeness and our infinite perfection. And I truly believe that the doorway into realization and the life you want to live and everything you want to create and experience comes down to knowing that you are absolutely inherently worthy of living that life you want to live and creating that life you want to live. It's not your job to figure out how that's going to happen. It's simply knowing you're worthy of it.
God, I want to get to the channeling, right? I know people are screaming at me right now saying, come on, Kev. But your question leads to other thoughts that come to my mind. And I know we're so much in overtime here right now. But what about someone who's locked up in 30 years of prison time, who has committed a murder, right? So he's killed his wife, let's say, as an example, right? He is in denial of ever killing and burying her body. And all he wants to manifest is to get out of prison. But he could get out if he did what's called an alpha plea, where you admit to doing it, but you're not, saying, well, you're saying you admit to doing it, but then you're still stating that you didn't do it. Gotta love the system, right? So in any of that process, I know that's a very broad question, right? But let's just take it to extremes, because I like to do that, right? To test out what you're saying, right? Would that be a better question for the council, right? Or I think maybe you have something to say on that.
Well, first off, again, we are creators within our own creation. We are creating our truth and we are creating our reality with our thoughts and our beliefs. So if this person genuinely believes and has created a reality where they didn't do it, what's the nicest way to say this? Don't entangle in someone else's reality. Your reality is for you, and you get to create your reality. And when we start to entangle and try to impose what we think is right for someone else's reality, we're now entangled. We're not in our power. We are not intentionally creating our life the way we want it to be. We're in distraction or resistance or judgment. That's that person's journey. Now, we also, the council says, and I think we talked about this in our first interview, you will always create your own suffering. When you think you know what another soul's journey should be, you have no idea why this person, why this soul chose this incarnation and these experiences and why they created this reality. And you never will. You can look at it and go, just like all the other things in this experience, you can go, I want to have that experience. Or you can go, wow, that experience is guiding me to the clarity that I want freedom and I want peace and I want joy and I want love, and I want the highest good for everyone. That might be leading you to go, okay, I'm observing what this person created, and this is what I am finding clarity of what I really want to create for me.
Absolutely. I do agree with what you're saying there. And I do feel as well, this is my take on it, our soul is guiding us on this journey. Our soul is, I'm using words that I always say this, I don't really understand what the soul is, except I know it's that bigger part of me. It's me. It's this consciousness, that this awareness that I really am, minus the body and so much more, right? And it's also kind of separate but with me, right? And there's multi facets of this that are way beyond most anyone's understanding, because we're meant to be here. But to try to understand the understandable, and to try to just look at it, right, just out of fun really, but more than that, maybe it's just because we're at that level to want to look at it, that we're being guided. Our soul is guiding us, and that person's soul who's committed something like that, who's in denial of what they did, and I never buried her, I never did this, I never did that, whatever it may be, right? They that's their soul's journey, because, and I say this, maybe that soul has no way of improving itself or fixing some issue that is understandable to us, that it has to go through something as extreme as that, but that this is the only way to break that person, to the soul, to learn something, right? And maybe that victim, as tragic as it is, it has a ramification for every other soul around it that has to feel the loss, and not growing up with a mum and all that, everything that goes with it, right? When people are lost this way, right? But it's that soul's journey as well, because they're working together. I'm using I'm just saying that this is a potential, right? There's a much bigger picture to this, right? But if someone's like myself doing a documentary on someone, and it's not that example, right? The documentary is not there to attack. The documentary is there, it's almost like to hold the facts accountable. Facts are facts. You can't get, yes, we've got perspective, but there's still the facts. You said it there, we've got truths, but there's and I call it perspectives maybe, but there is still the facts, right? So we could use what I'm doing within our relationships as well. What about holding people accountable rather than attacking? Is accountability something that you would go with, or your work ever goes into?
Well, the counselor would absolutely say it's about taking total responsibility for your life and for you. And when we take responsibility, we actually give other people permission or the opportunity to also look at their own life and take responsibility.
Right. Yes. That's like a mirror. Sorry, I butted in there. I'm
sorry. And
so,
again, the council says everything's happening for us. So if you look at this and go, okay, what's coming up for me is this person isn't being accountable for what they did. This person isn't taking responsibility for what they did. If you then ask yourself, in what way am I not taking responsibility? And important note, the council says the heaviest, densest human emotion is shame. And what I've really seen in the last several years is a elevating collectively out of shame. Now, some people may still be in it from time to time, but in our community, I've really seen that we don't even have questions related to that much anymore at all. Even questions about lack and limitation are fewer and fewer now. But if someone is in that state of shame, feelings of humiliation, not good enough, what they've done is so terrible, if anyone finds out, that's the heaviest, densest human emotion. You are as far away from the truth of who you really are when you're holding yourself in shame. So let's just say, for example, that some person does know what they did wrong. They have created, because of the depths of the shame that they've experienced, they have created this story that either keeps them entangled in that or is the only way they can find relief from that. And so the council says to deny another's worth. In that moment, you are denying your own. Any moment that we deny love for someone, in that moment, we're denying love for ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to have people in your life that you don't like or that you don't get along with, but don't deny their inherent innate worthiness, and don't deny love for them, because you're denying love for yourself. If you think you're warring with someone out there and fighting against someone out there, if you're watching the news and you are upset about someone out there, all of that energy is moving through your body first. That warring energy is moving through your body first. One of the most common diseases we talk about in our world is cancer. If you go down to what really cancer is, it's when the body begins to attack itself. It's one of the biggest diseases on our planet. And yet, one of the things we unconsciously do is war against things outside of us all the time. But all of that energy is moving through you first. Judgment. When you're judging anyone, no matter who it is, your body doesn't realize that you're intending to judge something out there. Your body is hearing it as judgment of itself. Your human is hearing it as judgment of itself, even when you think you're judging something out there. And so one of the practices that has changed my life is the council's teaching of just send them love. Just send them love. Just send them love. You don't know what their soul's journey is. You don't know what's going to bring them into their own realization. You don't know why they've chosen what they've chosen. And you don't need to. Just send them love. Because actually what you're doing in that moment is sending yourself love. And to me, that's what is meant by things like karma. It's instant. If you're judging someone, your human is experiencing that as judgment of itself. If you're sending love to someone, in that moment, you're sending love to yourself.
Interesting.
Should we bring in the council?
I think so. After all that, yes. That's enough of true crime. Yes, absolutely. But a lot of those aspects of that we touched on there, even though they were complete extreme, that's playing out all the time, just in even our relationships in some way. Do you know what I mean? So thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And ultimately, don't judge yourself. You are this magnificent being on this incredible journey. Your perfection is not required because you already are perfect and whole and complete. Be gentle on yourself. And as you're moving into higher awarenesses and as you're integrating these things and living them, don't judge yourself. In those moments, just be conscious and observe and be kind and gentle to yourself. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to bring in the council. It just takes me a couple of breaths. They'll start with a message, and you know how it goes. Then you can ask your questions to them and just have fun with it. So if you've never seen me channel before, my eyes are closed. If it feels good to you to also close your eyes and just really listen for the wisdom and what they're saying. They bring in a lot of information very quickly, but you can always go back and listen to the replay of this again and again. So have fun with it. And thank you, Kevin. I love you. I've just really enjoyed this opportunity to connect with you and amazing conversation. So here we go. We are so pleased and delighted to have the opportunity to speak with you, our dear, beloved friend. And we remind you that while our words to you are important, this is a vibrational experience of remembering the truth of who you really are and why you are here and all that you intended when you chose this magnificent life experience, because we assure you, your life is meant to be so very good for you. All of your power is in this moment, here for you to create your life and the experiences that you most desire. Everything you desire leads to expansion, greater expression of all that you are. So as you navigate this incredible human experience, remember that you are here to choose the experiences that you want to have for you, and know that you are worthy of creating those experiences for the joy, for the love, for the expansion, and to live fully. So, where would you like to begin, our friend? What questions do you have for us?
I think I'm going to use myself as a sort of personal springboard, right? Because I'm sure that others may resonate with my journey a little bit, and maybe if I include myself, it might make it a bit more interesting as well. I hope it does, right? So thank you for coming through. It's lovely to connect again. It seems like so long ago, but it was not at all, really. A blink of an eye, right?
Indeed. Indeed. But you are, in a whole new energy, a whole new level of consciousness. You are here in this greatest time of transformation of your beloved human family, and it is at a whole new level now. And much of that is because of those like you who are bringing forth the guidance and the wisdom for all who are ready to raise their consciousness and raise their vibration and come into their own experience of heaven on earth, a new earth, this dimension of consciousness that we refer to as pure love.
It doesn't always feel like that sometimes, obviously, when you're in this density as I'm at. And I feel like I've let go more recently. And I know you talk about this a lot in the work that comes through Sara. But I also feel very stuck. I'm at a point in my life where I can't work. I can only work for myself. There's never enough money coming in to get me out of this I call prison that I'm in, immigration prison. And I'm joking when I say that, but I'm not as well, but I am. And life is just completely on hold, stuck, and there are no options except just to wake up and do the show that I do some work on the docu-series that I'm working on, and that's it. There's no nothing, because I put myself in a situation where there is no one, and it's very isolated. Now, that's not all poor old Kev. I put myself here, right? But we do this to ourselves sometimes, I guess, and maybe I've done it to myself a bit more than others would do, right? But it feels, yes, I think the work that you talk about is great, and it feels right. But I think there's timing involved. And I feel for myself, I've just let go. I've let go, and I just don't care anymore. Whatever's gonna be is gonna be, because it's out of my control. Do you know what I mean? And I think the days are happier, and that's all I can say.
Well, we don't think you really want to work. We think you want to do what you love and do the things that bring you joy and pursue the things that you're curious and passionate about. You're the one who has created a reality or a story or a belief that you have to work and now you can't work. So all you want to do is work, but none of that is really what you want at all. We say that fear equals fewer options. When you think there's no options, you can't work, you can't make money, you can't pay bills. When you think that there are no options or only one option, you invoke fear and limitation. Fear equals fewer options. If you connect into a grander perspective or a higher vision, and when you really open up to the power that you have in every moment, And that power is love. And that power will exude through you in your states of being in joy and in peace and harmony. Everything you want and need will be there when you need it. When you come into a higher state of consciousness, into a resonance field where you have expanded this force field of consciousness that is you, you expand the particles of creation. You could draw to you everything you need and more. Your abundance and your well-being is assured. It may be people giving things to you. It may be things showing up, the resources you need showing up without even needing the money to have to buy them. Don't make money the middleman. But the truth here is you want to do what you love. You want the money to be there and the resources to be there to do what you're inspired to do when you're inspired to do it. So when you focus on the lack you have or the fear you have or the lack of options, you are in resistance. When you are resisting anything at all, you're resisting everything. You're making this conduit of source energy that is who you really are very, very, very small. In a lot of resistance, you are limiting source energy. So let us give you something else. The formula for creation is that consciousness moves energy into form. When you are in a lower level of consciousness, and we say the third dimension is a dimension of separation where you experience fear, lack, limitation, things are wrong, things are bad, they shouldn't be. When you are in a lower level of consciousness, you are not summoning a whole lot of energy, and it makes you feel stuck. It feels like things aren't happening. Nothing's moving into form. When you elevate your consciousness and your awareness and you raise your vibration, you, in that moment, begin to summon all of this energy that is here for you, and things start to move into form, and you get momentum, and things start to progress very quickly, and you feel better, and there's more joy, and it's easier, and you feel more peaceful, and you really do love the things you're doing. Then you draw more and more and more to you. So as you elevate your consciousness and your awareness and raise your vibration, you are summoning energy to move manifestation and creation into form. And when you understand this, just by simply tuning your awareness to it, in this moment, you are actually directing particles of infinite creation and summoning energy to move all sorts of things into form for you. If you go back into fear, you shut all that energy down. You can't really shut it off completely, but the lower vibration you're in, the less energy you're summoning. And that's why it feels so awful. Does that make sense to you?
It does, but I've given up on it. To be honest with you, I had to just let everything go, and just be day by day, not even caring about what the potential of what could be and everything else, because it's just too difficult trying to come from for me right now from that space. I'm day by day. I'm here today. This is what we're doing right now. Yes, I like the idea what you're saying there of doing that which you would really enjoy. Well, the only thing I would really enjoy right now would be to work on my true crime secret space program documentary, right? But if I do that, there's absolutely no money in that. That's a money taken on, I know what you're saying, if you would go with your joy and everything else, but in my situation, I feel if I did that, well, I would just stop everything and just concentrate on that. But maybe it would pay some. No, I don't know if it would pay the bills. I don't think it would. Not in my situation. So I have to do things that, I'm not that passionate about right now. But I feel I'm just a bit stuck, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? And we've all been there. And I'm just sharing mine with everyone, just as an example, right? And hopefully what you're going to say is going to help.
You've said you've let it go. And we often say, just let go. But there is this misunderstanding that surrender or letting go is a passive experience. you're creator within your own creation, and you can let it go and you cannot care, but you will always be creator within your own creation. So when you're not creating intentionally, it doesn't feel very good to you. And especially if you are perceiving that you can't create what you want to create, it's going to feel really awful to you, because the truth of who you are is that you're here to create your experience the way you want it to be. So letting go is not a passive thing. It's a very active, involved, present energy of following the energy and letting the light guide the way, even if it makes no sense to your logical human mind. All of the energy you're saying to us is flowing in the direction of this true crime series that lights you up and you're passionate about. And then you're squashing that with your logical mind. So you get the momentum going, the passion is there, the excitement is there, the energy is summoned. And then you say, oh, but I can't because of all of these things. And you shut it all down. And now the energy is not flowing. And that's why you feel stuck. You're not stuck. You will never be stuck. Even when you try to keep yourself stuck, there's still going to be energy flowing to you. What about your true crime series and creating it? What is the feeling that you want to have? What is the feeling that you would have if you were doing that right now?
I think the feeling of completion, the feeling of I kind of keep the word is completion. I don't want to change it to anything else where it's something it's not. It's just getting. It feels like it's calling, like it wants to be completed. The satisfaction of seeing it through.
Would it feel like something was fulfilled?
Yes. Okay. There's another word. Fulfilled. That's a great word. Yes. I don't have a thesaurus with me, but fulfilled. Yes.
So we think what you're really asking for is fulfillment, and to do what you are inspired to do and create your masterpiece in a way that you can experience it is very fulfilling. When you create something, yes, and then you get to enjoy the creation, that's very fulfilling. So the more you can be aware that what you're really wanting to experience is greater fulfillment in your life, where you're creating what you want to create, and then you get to experience your creations and the fulfillment that comes from that and the expansion that comes from that. What you don't understand is when something is inspiring you, your logical mind, interpreting your limited physical senses, does not understand the connections that will be made, the resources that will come in, the opportunities, the other projects, all of the things that will come from you moving in the direction of that which you feel called and inspired to do. And all sorts of things will show up to support you as you move in the direction of following the energy and following the light. Take any circumstances and conditions and apply them in your own life. You know that this is the experience you want to have, but you are denying yourself this experience because you think you need more money or more income. And the truth of it is, everything will show up to support you. Everything will be there when you need it. And in fact, when you really are in the energy of true creation, what you want and what you need shows up even before you know you need it. You might have someone who wants to support you and will work with you or help you for absolutely no money at all. You might have a resource come in. You might have a connection come in to someone. Everything will be there. Move in the direction of where the energy and the light is guiding you. Do what you love. Do what brings you joy. And we absolutely promise you, if you do not deny your infinite abundance and well-being, what you want and what you need will be there even before you know you need it. And a whole lot of things you can't imagine are going to show up in just the perfect time and open a new door and a new potential and a new possibility for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, putting myself out there as an example, right? Because there is a bit of embarrassment and shame with it, a tiny bit, not much, because I've gone so past what I just don't care anymore. Do you know what I mean? As much as I did do about things like that, they're still there. I'm not going to deny it. I feel, and I said this at the beginning, that there's a timing involved. My soul knows what's best for me, and that recently has been the thing that's freed me. I should have said that at the beginning, actually. It's been the most empowering thing, actually, to live by that. Do you know that? I only came through that conclusion with having so many channelers come on recently and just showing me truth after truth of what's coming through, because it just felt so right. I know it's true, right? So I'm going through what I feel is a hard time right now, but you know what? It's exactly where I need to be, and it's exactly what I need to break in what you were just saying there, actually, to break in to going with that which is enjoyable, that which is following you, which that you denied so long because you don't want to go through another lifetime of the goddamn denial again that you did probably many previous lives. Like, if lives are even previous or happening now, who cares, right? But I'm just saying, I know that to be some truth in that, right? I've done this all before, whether it's this life or others, right? And now I've got an opportunity to break it in going through such a difficult situation, which I do see from above a little bit more why it's going on. And that for others as well, going through the same thing. That's what I'm saying now.
We think you've created a fantastic, entertaining opportunity for you to come into the realization of your power. And that's all this is.
Yes, and we all go through this, don't we, in different ways. This could be some other way that someone else is going through this right now.
But it's like a script to a movie. If you think of movies, when you go watch them, the drama, the lead up, you know what's going to happen at the end. You know you're going to be fine. You know everything's going to be wonderful. You know you're going to come out on the other side of this. But the whole movie is about all the drama and the trauma leading up to the pinnacle moment where everything works out. So hear us when we say this to you. All of this is about you coming into the realization of your power to draw to you everything you need and more when you need it for the creation that you desire to experience, for you to create your reality. You have the power to draw to you everything you need for the creation of the reality that you want to experience. And when you get that, in that moment, all of this resistance that you've created will be gone. And the momentum and the acceleration and the quantum leap into yet another level of awareness of your power is going to be magnificent. But you don't have to create all of this resistance to move into new levels of creation and new levels of love and new levels of abundance and new levels of your personal power and new levels of freedom. And we'll say to you, if you knew you were worthy, really worthy of creating your life any way you want it to be, you would let all this resistance go.
Yeah, the resistance has been so blocking that it's even blocked me from even wanting to imagine what it would be like to be with a partner that I would really love to be with. I can't even see her right now. Do you know that? I got to a point in my life where everything that I thought I wanted to do and everything that I was doing or anything that I would do just felt, it didn't feel It just felt unpurposeful. It just felt that there's nothing I want to do. It's almost like I didn't even want to be here anymore.
So,
And
two
I hate
things.
admitting that.
Our first question is got nothing to do with you. What do you most want for others? What do you most want for the people that you love?
For them to be happy and to be living a life that's full of love and happiness and contentment and I know, where's that in my life, right? Yeah. That I want for others what I don't want to give to myself, right? Yeah. It's kind of funny, isn't it? And I don't know why.
It is sort of silly, isn't it?
It is. I don't know where the block
silly,
came.
Isn't it?
It is, but I don't know where the block came. I don't know why I got to this stage of hate and anger, in a sense, probably towards myself as well. I think we've all, people watching this have been at that block, maybe have not even known it's there. And I think you would say how important it is to love yourself, and how that love goes out to everything else. We radiate what we put in the world, don't we?
So
I know all these things, right? Well, I'm blocking myself, right? Yeah,
But you get to choose. You could take a deep breath and go, okay, enough. I've shamed myself enough. I've judged myself enough. Now I'm going to be happy. And here's what we would say. Give yourself 1 week. And if you can't give yourself a whole week, give yourself 3 days. Give yourself between now and Monday or 3 days from now. And you're just, for those 3 days or for that week, you're just going to do what brings you joy. You're just going to do the things that bring you happiness. You're just going to do the things that feel good. You're just going to do the things you love to do. Just for a couple of days. You're just going to give yourself a couple of days to play around with your crime series inspiration, to do whatever you feel inspired to do, whatever comes to you. It might be to go to the local cafe and order a delicious meal that you've been thinking about. Just give yourself a couple of days. Create a date in your mind. And until that day, you're just going to do what brings you joy. And when that voice in your head comes up and starts judging and condemning and trying to be, nope, stop it. And say to yourself out loud, stop it. Stop it. I'm giving myself until Monday. I'm giving myself between now and whatever day it is to do the things that bring me joy and to just do the things that make me happy. Can you do that?
Yes. Yeah, without, yeah. Gonna say something.
If you really do this, you will shift this far more easily than you realize. You're not doing it to try to make something happen. You're just doing it to remind yourself that you're worthy of doing what brings you joy and being happy, instead of all these silly beliefs you picked up that you are here to earn a living and work hard, and that there's still all this stuff that needs to be done for you to be worthy or for you to be enough. If you don't start doing what brings you joy and being happy now, you're holding yourself in a place that you're stuck, and there's no point in time in which you're going to start. So choose now and give yourself a few days and just do what brings you joy and what makes you happy and what you love to do for just a couple of days.
Thank you, and that can go for anyone that's struggling through this moment right now. And I know I'm not on my own. I'm not, I'm just not. And this, doesn't always have to be such a a light and love conversation. This is the real world. This is the real ramifications of being here, right? And it's you know, some things aren't so straightforward. Well, they're not always so easy, are they? We get tested, or not tested. They are there to show us what we need to be shown, and I get that. I see that so much clearer now. I really do, and I feel it as well. I know it's true. I'm saying to you, you know, I know my soul is guiding me. I wasn't using those words before to myself, but I actually truly not just believe it. I know it to be the situation for myself. So that's helped a lot. That was free, and even you know, remembering that, right? So, you know, with my situation and others as well, I was going to ask you, right, you know, can we go off our path? And well, yeah, there was a question added to that, but actually just that part there, can we go off our path? And does path mean purpose, I guess? Can we go off our purpose? Is that the same as going off our path, do you think?
Well, first off, we'll tell you there's nothing outside of you testing you. You are testing you because you still don't believe you're worthy. You continually test yourself because you do not believe you're worthy. To answer your question, we would say that your life experience is like going on a vacation. You're home, everything's good, but all of a sudden you're inspired to go to this place and you start looking and researching this place, and you research flights of how you're going to get there and where you're going to stay and what you're going to do when you get there. And the big day that you've been planning for comes, and you get on the airplane and you fly to this destination, and you're there for a period of time, and you go to wonderful restaurants. And if you're at a beach, you go walk on the beach or ski down the mountains. You do all the things you want to do, and you have wonderful adventures, and some that you plan, or days that you may just choose to relax, or you may eat lunch that day in a particular place, or you might just enjoy little delicacies all day and have a wonderful dinner. You're having this experience, and then when the time comes that you have decided or agreed that your vacation is over, you come back home, and oh, it's so good to be home, until the next adventure or vacation inspires you and you're off again. And so when you're on vacation, you can either be having a grand and glorious time and really enjoying it and doing all the things you want to do and having fun and giving yourself time to rest and enjoy it, or the whole time you can be miserable and you can be worried and stressing and you can be frustrated. There's no wrong way. But if you're going to come this far on this grand vacation that you call your life experience, let it be the grand, glorious, magnificent adventure that you intended it to be. Are you off path if you're on vacation and miserable? There's no judgment from our side ever. But when you're enjoying your life and you're happy and uplifted and inspired and meeting new people and having new experiences and exploring new places, that's what you intended. And when you're holding yourself apart from that, it doesn't feel very good. Are you off path or not living your purpose? You're here to have a joyful life experience. You're here to have a joyful vacation. That's why you came. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Your ultimate purpose is to remember who you are. And it may not be something you can explain. But when you're not in resistance and you just have those moments of feeling present in the moment and in your power, In those moments, you're remembering the truth of who you are. And it's as simple as you're either allowing the truth of who you are, the love that you are, the extraordinary being that you are, the perfection that you are, the wholeness that you are, or you're doubting and denying it with some story in your head or some belief you have about yourself or some limitation that you've placed on your own experience. It's not real and it's not the truth of you. And that's why it feels so awful. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And, your work, the work of that you've channeled through Sarah, it talks about obviously discovering the steps to destiny and purpose and stuff. And really, from just listening to what you're saying, it's as simple as going with joy.
And isn't it interesting? What you most want for others is happiness. So your purpose, if you want to call it that, is to embody that happiness you most want to contribute to the life of others as often as possible in every moment. Do you understand? It simply cannot come to you when you're in, because what is money? It's energy. It's energy. It's an energetic exchange. When you understand what you're giving, when you understand that you are giving, you are, but giving and receiving are one. And you are holding yourself apart from receiving for what you're giving with a belief that money can't come. You have a whole lot of abundance here in this moment. And in every moment, it's energy. When you allow yourself to receive for all that you have given, money will come, resources will come, connections, opportunities, all sorts of things will begin to show up for you. Don't make money the middleman. Sometimes the easiest, most effortless, harmonious way is something so much better than money or something money couldn't even buy. A connection that might open the door for you to create a documentary that becomes world renowned and all sorts of opportunities that you never could have imagined, and a life beyond what you could have imagined would open up for you if you would just move in the direction of what you're inspired to do right now and allow yourself to receive all that is here for you.
And I'll reverse that. It could be letting go of legacy things that have, because the fulfillment of completion, it then allows you to get on with that which is really there to generate the wealth, and not just the wealth, but also the passion that you find from doing it as well, the love you find from doing it. We're all on different journeys. I know you're kind of trying to generalize there, which I get because of the audience watching, but there is an individual journey going on as well, which is different for everyone else.
Indeed. However, everything is here for you. And as you come into higher levels of consciousness, it's all here for you. You have more abundance on your planet than ever before, more money on your planet than ever before, more wealth, more resources than ever before. And they're all here for you, unless you are holding yourself in a dimension of consciousness of separation, where all that is here for you and available to you is separate from you. It's a level of consciousness, and it can be no other way. If you're holding yourself in separation, that which you want has to be separate from you.
And as you said, the easiest way, and I'm going to say it again, I'm just an easy kind of person, right? Go with joy, go with what you're going to enjoy doing. With I guess I've got to add this with the God, what's the right word I'm going to use, with the assets, with whatever you're limited by what you've got in a sense. Well, I'm just using these words, that I couldn't just go out and order $100,000 worth of After Effects, to make the documentary even better. You've got what you've got. You've got to work with it. You've probably got everything you need. Actually, that's why you wouldn't need that. You've probably got everything around you that you actually need.
Well, what you're really saying is you can only perceive what your limited senses can interpret as what you have right now. As you elevate your consciousness and your awareness, you begin to be aware that as you expand your force field of consciousness, you're expanding all of the resources and the potentials and the possibilities in that force field of consciousness. And now so much more is here and available to you. And we say that as you elevate your consciousness to the fifth dimension of pure love, your well-being and your abundance are absolutely assured, which means indeed everything will be there even before you know you need it.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, and I'm going to ask it anyway. Right? You know, um, I gosh, should I ask this or not? Well, okay. I may cut this out, I may not, right? But for the docuseries that I'm working on, right, it involves a gentleman called Richard Baldwin. Okay, so he was the victim in this particular docuseries that I'm working on. And if there was any message from Richard or his energy into this moment now, I don't know if you're able to tune into that, or if he wants to come forward, or if, but I'm just curious.
Well, a few things. First off, you've all been all things. We've all been all things. The second thing is the perception of being a victim is an experience that is only possible if you're holding yourself in the third dimension, if you're in a lower level of consciousness. And so the truth of who he is and who all of you are knows that there are no victims. And yet that source energy that is the truth of you loves you unconditionally so much that you're allowed to create your reality. And you're so free that you can create in an experience of separation the reality of being victimized. And yet in the moment, one releases the density of the body and reemerges into a higher level of vibration or frequency or consciousness. They will know themselves as the wholeness and the perfection and the truth of who they are, which could never be a victim to anyone.
Well, I'm using earth words. I'm just using the court testimony words. Of course, he's not a victim. Of course, I know that, and and he knows that. I don't know why I'm even asking it, really, because it's got nothing to do with this whole subject. But it's just, I'm just curious.
It has everything to do. We're talking about creating your reality. We're talking about creating in
maybe it does.
different levels of
Okay.
consciousness that are available to you.
Yep.
We're talking about how you are powerful and that you can create any reality that you choose. Mm-hmm. Now, we would emphasize, we know no one would ever consciously choose to be abused or raped or tortured or harmed. We know that no one would ever consciously, intentionally choose that. And we are not saying that you did this to yourself. We have so much love for you, and there's no judgment from our side ever. But in those experiences, if you were to take the emotion out of it and truly know your worth and truly know how loved you are, how powerful you are, and in those moments, if one really came into embodying that truth, they would have the power, no matter what it was, to walk out of that situation into absolute freedom and peace and harmony and love.
I just wondered if there was any Am I after a message? I don't know. I don't know. I just wondered how this group would pick up on something like him, and what they would feel from that energy.
It's all just awareness. It's all awareness. Any topic, any question you want to ask us, it's all you drawing this to you. You are channeling this to you to bring yourself into a higher level of consciousness, to bring forth even greater awareness to yourself. You are drawing this to you. You are drawing this awareness to you. You understand? Yeah.
Yeah. So a loss of something really just turns us into, yeah, everything's transform. Everything's turning into who we really are, isn't it? Everything's transforming in the moment, and yeah, I get that. I get that.
Nothing's ever lost.
That's
it
right.
simply changes form. Everything is always a continuation of creation. And we say to you and to all of you who are listening, everything you feel like you have lost will be restored, and so much more.
And if it's not happening for you, the reason that there's very fundamental reasons for the blockage as well, which is at the core self-love.
You're resisting source energy. When you're resisting anything, you're resisting everything. Again, it goes back to summoning energy. When you're in resistance, holding yourself in a lower vibration or lower level of consciousness, you're not accessing all of the source energy that is here for you. That source energy is pure love. It's the power of love. It's the truth of who you are, which is only love. And so when you're denying love for yourself, you are creating a resistance that doesn't allow the source energy that is the truth of you to flow through you as you intended it to be.
I think I'm picking up on what you're saying actually as well. Even me doing this docu-series is an absolute mirror and reflection to all that you've said, really. Because these lives of these people are a reflection to me and to anyone that's going to watch it in so many ways. Yeah, God, it's so complicated and yet so easy, yet so connected.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen.
You are creator within your own creation of reality, and everyone else is too. That's all. That's all this is.
And we're here to master our life experience as well.
Indeed. Which means you get to create your life the way you want it to be. You are creating your reality, and you get to choose the experiences that you want to have for you. And nothing except your belief in your own lack and limitation can hold you apart from it.
And thank you. And very finally as well. So when you talk about, and you sort of mentioned it a little bit, fourth and fifth dimensions, well, the new earth in a sense. I guess if I was to try to sum that up, and I've never really understood it, but we haven't got the time to go too deep into it, but really it's about creating heaven on earth, creating your best life on earth, and all that. When you do go to that higher dimension, which you're not, I don't know, but we're all here, but your energy is different, and the people and the situations around you are of the same energy. It's not to say you're not going to have tests and all that kind of stuff. Well, I'm using that word test, right? But just, life happening. But you are creating a different energy or coming from a different space.
You won't deny love for yourself or any other for any reason. There is nothing worth your heaven on earth. And when you realize your heaven on earth, you'll realize that entangling in someone else's problem is not worth your heaven on earth. Judging someone else for what they're creating is not worth your heaven on earth. Entangling in what's right and wrong and trying to fight against is not worth your heaven on earth. And you'll realize that you have a far greater ability to contribute and make an impact on humanity the way you desire to when you are in a realized state of heaven on earth. You all want the same things: joy, peace, love, harmony, abundance, well-being, freedom, fulfillment, purpose, meaning. You all want the same things. And you really all want the same things for everyone that you love.
and you could approach investigative journalism like that as well. You could come and from a
inspiration.
Yep. You could come from a complete
freedom.
Yep. You could come from a completely different space when looking at subjects from that space that you're expressing here. And I think I'm getting a little bit of it. So I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
Indeed.
All right.
Indeed.
So I'm going to let you go because it's been a very long interview, and I so appreciate you coming through right now. Just you know that anyway,
Indeed.
right? And
Indeed.
much love.
We are always with you, and we are always available to you. Remember this one thing: you are everything you wish to be. You already are. It is all within you, and it always will be. We have enjoyed this conversation so very much. We love you. We love you. We love you. And with that, we are complete.
Well, thank you very, very much for that. Now, Sarah, just for the audience, just remind us of your website one final time for the podcast as well.
Yeah, thank you. That was an amazing conversation, Kevin. So much in there. SaraLandon.com. You can find free resources there. You can find more information about the meditations and the courses we talked about in the master's class community. There's also several free videos on youtube.com, Sara Landon Life. You'll find several channel messages there, as well as our podcast that we create monthly, which is the Journey of the Master podcast. So I also do a free daily quote that shares the latest channeled wisdom of the council. And again, as I said, under free resources, we share 2 new channeled messages every single month from the council. So thank you so much, Kevin. This has been amazing. I know we could just talk for hours and hours, but it's been so fun. Thanks so much.